Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Jason Eder, and I'm the Director of Business Development at Profound Cloud. Today's session is covering modernizing file sharing with Google Drive for Work, or also known as switching from a file server to Google Drive for Work. I'll address how Google Apps Work for Work tackles enterprise file sync and sharing as a solution, and discuss Profound Cloud's proven best practice in successfully deploying Google Drive for an organization from an IT administration perspective. Also, if you have questions, I will try to save time at the end, but we'll be certain to contact you directly should I not have enough time to respond to everyone's questions. Lastly, this session will be recorded and I'll be certain to share it with you should you be interested. Everyone is in mute right now. And as you can see from the image on the screen, there is a little bar in your dashboard that says questions. Feel free to type your questions right in there, or you can even go a little further down and you'll see there's a chat section. Either one of those I'll be monitoring, and at the end, I'll make sure to answer anybody's questions. So let's begin. So, how often do you hear this? I know I catch myself saying it pretty regularly. I might even go as far as saying I rely on my mobile device and tablet to do my job. For those of you who are currently using Google Apps, we found, believe it or not, that this is what most of us see when we're talking about using the App Suite and working on our devices. And maybe these too. But email, contacts, and calendar are the primary work tools that people utilize on their iPhones, Androids, and other devices as well. I do agree they serve well for quick communication, but I wonder if it's sufficient. With so much accessibility to other, more personal data points, is mail, calendar, and contacts enough? So here we are. This is what our coffee breaks, lunches, and work travel look like, right? The gentleman with his laptop likely has the most functionality out of these four people. But why? Why shouldn't the combination of your personal devices and enterprise operating system from a mobile device perspective be limited to just mail, calendar, and contacts, as we talked about before? What about your documents, your presentations, your images, your videos, the actual content that is pertinent to your organization's success? People are trying to work harder, smarter, and more efficient, but are being stonewalled by outdated technology. A Wall Street Journal article recently reported that the number of secure mobile apps companies activated increased 20% in the second quarter over the first quarter. And document editing apps are the most widely used type of apps in the enterprise. Mobile is key to enterprise file synchronization and sharing. This type of accessibility, though, is yearned by organizations, which is why most organizations are using tens of cloud storage apps and hundreds of collaboration apps. SkyHigh, a company that is in the cloud security space, recently released an analysis based on 350 mid to large businesses that illustrates this entire phenomenon of people trying to access information and store data, and that's regarding corporate, right? Everyone is aware of what shadow IT for file sharing is, but collaboration is an even bigger category. The average mid to large business uses 125 collaboration apps. GoToMeeting, like this, for example, Evernote, Prezi, Skype, and Google Apps versus 37 other file sharing apps. This isn't surprising because people want to do better at their job. It's a very simple thing. This isn't a malicious or evil type of habit that a lot of organizational staff members are doing. What they're trying to do is do a better job. They want to be more productive. They want to have access to things, and they want to, win new roles in leadership and such within the organization. So what they're doing is they're trying to find the productivity tools that enable them to do a better job. So Google's Drive for Work works on any device, anytime, with any team. And I invite you to think beyond the perceived limitations of mobility and standard practices of file sharing and synchronization. So first, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about Google Apps for Work as its whole, and then I'm going to dive into our methodology and proven philosophy that has actually gotten organizations to embrace the Google Apps Suite, and in particular Drive, and thinking Drive for Work, and how to take your current on-premise file servers, or maybe one of those cloud applications that you're using, or not even potentially, or people within your organization aren't even paying for, to grab that data, put it into Google Drive in an organized and architected way that it gives you that comfort and security that you want to from an administrative standpoint, and gives the freedom and flexibility that your staff is yearning for. So let's not discount the importance of apps as a platform. It delivers the core of what we do and is the basis for our authentication. You can access your work on any device, hold video conferences from your iPhone, your Android tablet, or laptop. One of my favorite use cases is when I need to jump on my bus to get home, I can still open up a presentation or proposal like this one on the bus. And in real time, I can edit, I can comment and create and collaborate with my colleagues that are still in the office. When I'm on conference calls or discussing project scope with a client, I can easily message or email my colleagues or the people I'm speaking with a link to a live document. So there's no need to send an attachment when you can collaborate in real time, especially with using Google Hangouts and such as like what I'm doing here with Google Drive. So this entire presentation right here is hosted in Google Drive, and I created it in Google Drive, and it's really, very effective, and it's easy for me to edit it and access from anywhere. And why do people still send out copies of copies of copies? Google has eliminated this mundane and redundant task by merging versions into one collaborative work, one file to rule them all, with an automatic revision history, suggested edits for rendering proposals, or redlining proposals, view or comment only options are there. If you're trying to share it to someone, you don't want them to actually alter the document. And all this is completely possible without even the save button. So, for example, if someone needs to send me a non-Google file, such as a PDF, Word or file, or any type of file, I actually can just immediately grab that file and within Gmail and actually save it to my Google Drive. And I can do this from my mobile device as well. If I'm on my iPad, someone sends me something, I can actually click Save to Drive directly from the Gmail app, and I don't even have to open up Google Drive or download the file, etc. So this image right here actually is just a perfect example of that suggesting and editing and viewing capability I was talking about. When you don't need version after version after version after version. You use one living document and then go from there. It really reduces a lot of the frustration, and it ensures that the most accurate and up-to-date version is what your staff is using. So like I said, this is what it looks like when I'm on the bus, for example, working on a project plan with my colleagues who are maybe at their office or working from home. So as I'm sitting in traffic on the New Jersey Turnpike, I'm collaborating with my teams wherever they are from whichever device of their choice. So we want to talk a little bit about Google Apps for Work Unlimited before we dive into the nitty-gritty here. So think about this: unlimited email and file storage, right? So no more routine mailbox cleaning, no more purging of your PST files, no more alerts that your inbox file server or my docs is full and you need more storage ever. It's gone, right? Additionally, with Google Apps for Work Unlimited, you get unlimited storage, which means no more managing quotas, right? Drive supports multi-terabyte files and is available in over 70 languages. And Drive is built on Google's globally optimized data center network, so performance and availability are world-class, okay? And it's kind of nice to know that they're also green. Google's infrastructure has all the major security certifications, plus a team of over 400 security engineers working full-time to protect their systems and users. Drive includes audit reports that let you track all user activities and security controls so you can customize Drive for your organization's needs. Data in Drive is encrypted at rest and in transit. And so mobile security is also built in. Just recently, they released Android for Work, giving you the EMM solution that you're looking for. And that's just part of the Google Apps Suite. So you can actually capture your Android on Android devices currently, you can actually capture the work-related data in a bucket that is completely monitored. You can wipe from it, and separates that personal device accessibility from the business device accessibility as well. And Drive gives you company-wide file search too. And so they're also looking to add even more features to their archiving and e-discovery tools in Vault, Google Vault, which is part of Google Apps for Work Unlimited. So Google is constantly coming up with new ways to detect security threats, and so you'll benefit from innovations like suspicious login detection and other areas as well. It's also easy to manage. So they have a centralized admin panel, which is extremely convenient and allows you to manage all the tools and applications, policies, etc., for your organization via the web. There's even an application you can download from either the iOS or the Android App Store in order to manage your domain on the go, which is really a pretty useful tool. And it also integrates with your existing authentications too. So if you have a different single sign-on solution, et cetera, it's very easy to plug and play. And there's a slew of third-party applications that can make that that functionality even more seamless. And with Drive's reporting features, plus Google Vault, it's easy to visualize usage, sharing trends, and also meet compliance needs. So I invite you to consider looking beyond the limitations of your operating systems and enabling your growing mobile workforce to become more productive and more efficient, all while increasing, revenue. So remember that coffee shop, right? All those people looking at their devices. Let's flip it around and to what we're actually really looking at here from a usability standpoint. Let's make it more specific by imagining that you're an audio-visual tech for a hotel conference center. And you need to set up Wi-Fi to a room before a well-known and moderately temperamental speaker is supposed to deliver a presentation. So everything is set up, but in order to establish a connection, a wireless connection, you need to confirm the setup is completed back at the main office. So more so, the tech, thinking he was doing a good job, offered to edit the presentation for the presenter on behalf of the hotel after noticing an outdated logo. So I've been there and I've done that many times, right? Regardless, though, he needs to communicate with the local tech office to either switch on services or at the very least troubleshoot why it's not working. This requires multiple pieces of information and proof of setup. In most cases, he'd need to leave the empty room or call the office to review everything that was already done. And like in most cases, there's no way enough time to do either. This could cause a major delay and quickly be skating on thin ice with the potential of losing a customer. So let's look at how differently this would have gone with Google utilizing Google Drive in particular. So as the tech was setting up the room, he or she could have been entering his or her configuration or work-related data into a Google form. And thanks to a Google Apps script, the data is then recorded into the system and is accessible as needed. The script also has a time-based trigger to notify the office the setup was not marked complete. So then instantly via Hangouts, the office communicates with the tech rather than the tech waiting for the office to be available. Together they can troubleshoot, utilize the camera, see all the data, and get ready for the presentation. It's amazing the power of this instant video communication, chat, photography, things of that nature can make a very time-consuming operation extremely simple. Imagine if there was a diagram that needed to be sent. You can simply go back and forth. Someone can even circle on their screen saying, this is where I need you to plug this piece in. And from your phone, you can see that and you can really have at it quite easily. And then the tech can even edit the presentation, right? So in 2 minutes, the service was turned on and the presentation was fixed. This even gave the speaker 5 minutes to prep before the people that were attending the event entered the room. So it's a complete win, right? What's the business benefit? Drive was able to reduce dramatically the time spent setting up services and increasing jobs completed per day. So the more positive consumer reactions and ability to streamline workflows is better for business. This could also assist in predicting more realistic times for installations. Then service is initiated faster, and via Sheets is marked and recorded as complete. So consider Drive to manage your operations, deliver access to find support, and deliver unfettered access to documents. Consider a platform that enables you to ask questions on demand, access all of your data, and communicate and collaborate like you've never imagined. So here's some other icons, right? And here's what we see when we think of Google Apps for work. There's endless opportunity. We see an enterprise-ready engine constantly churning out iteration after iteration of incredible power. And it's all placed in your hands. And we've identified, though, that many organizations, they choose to go to this cloud platform, have lost something pertinent to a successful rollout. Where did the buttons, t-shirts, and signage, why did they fade away into the abyss? Why did the work monster come and consume the excitement that once existed when going Google in the first place? Well, a lot of it has to do with one simple phrase, and I hear it almost every day. I don't know what I don't know, right? So organizations need to understand what they need to be working with an organization that is constantly feeding them updates, information, and providing support and making them aware of the best practices, what's happening, how are other businesses utilizing this tool set and making their business grow, and how can they apply it to their own organization. Okay? So here we are again. And here are the many opportunities to grow your business with Google. Today's session will be focused on modernizing your organization with our proven Google Drive implementation plan. More so, from an administrative standpoint, let's talk about living the dream when it comes to your shared and synced files. For anyone who is fortunate enough to be tasked with managing a file server, these items should look very familiar to you. Patching, redundancy and replication across multiple sites, storage arrays and keeping those updated and maintained, and typically one of the largest pain points, and providing VPN and remote access. So what is the dream? Well, here it is. The dream is to shut down the file server and move all of your data to Google Drive. Shut her down, set it on fire, give it a good kick, pull one of those episodes from Office Space and take it out to the recycling area and get it out of there. Google Drive says you should share information among small teams. You should search, not browse or sort. And Google Drive also suggests that we should let our users manage their own data. Okay, well, this makes a lot of sense when you think of Google as a company and their methodologies within the workplace. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that's how your organization's works. So we have two different methodologies here. We have the legacy file server, which has the VPN and remote access, redundancy and replication across multiple sites, storage arrays, and keeping them updated and maintained. And then we have Google, who is saying Google Drive wants the users to take care of their own information, their own sharing. It's a little bit more freeform, a little bit, very personal experience. It's not necessarily the way that you want to go. And we've seen this come with a lot of our organizations that we work with. So what we see is that IT managers want to control and monitor permissions centrally. They may say this is how it is and has to be and will be for the foreseeable future. Additionally, we've been in board meetings where the suggestion of a user-based management made IT directors cringe or even feel ill. And let's face it, sometimes you just need to browse instead of searching, and it's all their job to provide that capability, right? So at Profound Cloud, we were faced with the conundrum with all this information. We have this incredible new platform with Google Drive, and also some tried and true methodologies of file organization that we rely on. Google Drive was trying to tell us to do something different than we were before, and that's exciting and great. But our challenge was to come up with a list of best practices to marry the more traditional IT concepts with Google Drive and really make it more feasible to adopt Google Drive across the organization and eliminate the reliance of the file server infrastructure altogether. We've had great success within our own company and with many other organizations that we worked with as well. So here's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about a folder structure and naming convention and how we suggest we do it a little bit more efficiently and differently. We're also going to talk about managing permissions and specifically using role-based permissions to enable an administration-minded folder structure rather than a free-for-all. We'll talk about how to implement a root folder and also what that really means in respect to Google Drive. We'll also cover some odds and ends, or rather some thoughts that help further shape the concept of using Google Drive as a file share. So the first item I want to talk about here is this root folder. We live by the motto, one folder to rule them all, right? And what it means is instead of having a bunch of shared folders that are scattered across an organization, think about having one root folder. This is exactly what you would have done in your traditional file server. You likely have a particular hard drive that is shared on data. Let's call it the F drive. And inside your F drive, you have all your shares, which you can manage in one place. Well, think about doing something similar in Google Drive. And here's some guidelines for that. For the root folder, so a root folder should be owned by a non-human admin account. This is going back to general IT best practices, but is something that gets overlooked when focusing on the newness of or work involved when deploying Google Apps across the domain. In many cases, we've seen that when people go Google, they first go, let's just start with Gmail, calendar, contacts first, because it's a big change. It's not your standard IT project where you can do this work in the background. This is a revolution. It's not just an evolution of product. You're reshaping how people are communicating. So you want to separate that super user accounts from the day-to-day work. Okay, so you also want to set up that root folder so that everyone in the org can view it. Remember, though, under this umbrella of the root folder, a particular individual will only be able to view the folders they have access to, which is unlike a traditional Windows server, and we'll have to talk about that a little bit more later. So then you want to set up the root folder so that only the owner or this non-human account can edit it. So everyone in the organization can view it, but only the non-human account can edit it. And similarly, you want to set it up so that only that also in that non-human account, the owner, if you will, can change permissions as well. So everything is completely managed and maintained by that non-human account, that non-human user. It will cost you a license, but I'm telling you, it's going to be worth it. So let's talk a little bit more about Google Drive here. So in Google Drive, the world is flat. And this is something that my CEO, Michael Spadaro, came up with. And I found it extremely revealing and relevant to this presentation. And let's talk about what it means. So there's two different potential file hierarchies here. The first, as you see in the image, is a traditional file server. Let's call it a deeper file structure where you have more nesting and more subfolders. This works extremely well for a browser mentality in that when you're browsing, you can naturally move from one topic to the next. Well, Google Drive is a little different. It's search-based, so we actually recommend a flatter folder structure. This is obviously a simplified example, and every organization is going to be extremely different on how they adopt this concept. And there's different degrees of the level of flatness or deepness when it relates to your organization. But the general takeaway here is to think about a flatter folder structure. If you have a background in traditional IT file structure, you're probably either A, asking yourself why you deleted Candy Crush on your phone, or B, looking around for a doctor because I'm obviously in need of medical assistance. This looks and sounds a little strange, right? But I'm telling you that this is something that we've done and it works. And even if you're already a Google Apps for Business customer, this is still something that you can do and apply to your organization to clean up what you're currently doing now. So let me give you another reason for consideration here. If you think about search-based environment, let's look at two folders, sales reports and marketing reports. This is why we're talking about flat folder structures here. So in a flat structure, if I search for reports, I'm just going to see folder names. I'm not going to see the paths, right? So if I think about what it would look like if I had a deep structure, My search results would get me reports and reports. This is because they'd be subfolders of sales and marketing. So by flattening that folder structure to one level, what's been done is it allows users to search more efficiently and find the folder that they're looking for. Remember, if they're searching on a Mac or PC, they're going to be able to search and see the relevant paths. So, which is very unlike Google Drive. Drive just gives you the name. And with that being said, the name of a folder is now extremely important when designing a Drive folder structure for your organization. And this is one of the key reasons we recommend a flatter folder structure. When you combine that with the fact that there is a lot of truth to search, don't browse, when it comes to Google Drive, and we're no longer concerned about giving the user the easiest browse experience, but rather a completely optimized search experience instead. This is the same way you would provide SEO for your website. You just want to search. Search engine optimize your Google Drive. And this continues with file names as well. In a traditional file server, you'd have a hierarchy with a folder called Client XYZ, subfolder proposals, and then inside of that, Google Apps and user support. Now, if I'm browsing to that, I understand that this is the Google Apps end user support proposal. I get it and I understand that it's for client XYZ because I browse through the hierarchy. But if I search in Google Drive and I get Google Apps end user support, that means nothing to me. With this being said, you need to apply the same methodology to your files as you would your folders in Google's flat environment. So when you search for client XYZ, you'll immediately find the end user support proposal. Again, traditionally, IT admins like descriptive file names, but not lengthy file names. In Google Drive, it is a necessity to be as descriptive and lengthy as possible for the best SEO-like results. So now I'm going to briefly cover role-based permissions, which many of you are likely familiar with already. Role-based permissions has been part of IT best practices for a long time. But what we see, since Google Drive tends to lend itself to this sort of ad hoc as needed sharing method, which can work in a very small team, we see a lot of customers just sharing to individuals on an as needed basis. And so it looks like this image. Phyllis, Sally, Wendy, and Jim all have access to this folder, and they do what they please. What we recommend is as follows. Set up role groups. There are groups in the admin panel specifically for administrating Drive and making sure they have access to these things they're supposed to have access to. Maybe Phyllis and Sally are members of the sales group, and Wendy and Jim are members of the marketing group. What's important here is using groups that are specifically designed for Google Drive. We do not recommend using your basic email distribution groups that you might use for email purpose for this. And this is specifically why, when naming, we give the name role so that there's a clear distinction in the admin panel between your role groups for Drive versus your distribution lists and groups for Gmail. Two very different things. Another consideration is to ensure these groups are restricted so they won't be used in email distribution lists. So once you do away with the single user permissions and enable the role-based permissions, you end up with a dramatically cleaner permissions list. You have the Drive admin who will be owning this folder and permissions given to the specific role groups. So here's some other things to keep in mind. Role-based permissions makes for a significantly faster employee onboarding and offboarding process. So when Sally comes aboard, we don't need to think about the 17 to 30 folders she needs to have access to. We just need to understand the role she plays. Keeping a cleaner permissions list is also significantly easier to manage. The last thing you want to do is see 60 line item permissions lists with various users spread across, which makes it nearly impossible to digest, analyze, or report on. And as discussed, using restricted Google Apps groups is a best practice we highly recommend to make the move much cleaner. As we mentioned earlier, the topic is thinking beyond Gmail and really taking full advantage of the enterprise capabilities Google Drive provides. All this work for file structure seamlessly increases efficiency in other business processes and is why taking the time to discuss and strategize how you can optimize Drive for your business is so critical. So just to summarize, here's what Google Drive and our Google Drive architecture should look like with the recommended approach I just discussed. We have a root folder called Acme Drive. We've got a flat folder structure that has taken away one level of the hierarchy to support better searching. We've assigned role groups to the top level folders. And what we've also done is made sure that nobody else apart from the admin is allowed to change the permissions on the top level folders. As to what level the hierarchy you lay out for your users, think of it as a shelf. And once you've built the shelf, you can allow them to fill it up. But what you want is to do is ensure that you, the admin, is in control of the shelf. You are in control of the outer permissions. And that's the goal, and the goal we're achieving. So once this root folder is created, then you need to deploy it to your users. More importantly, you need to spend the time and resources on how to use it. A couple of really simple suggestions to get started is if you take the sharing link from Google Drive, the Google Drive root folder, and shorten it, it's really useful. Use something within your org or goo.gle or whatever you need to do, bit.ly to make these shorter URLs. It's a simple and kind of a duh tip, but it really does help in terms of making it easier so that your employees can quickly access this folder. And this is a key. Ensure that in your training, and make sure that you're training all your employees, right? Add the root folder to their My Drive for quick and easy access. There's other reasons for this too, and it directly relates to those of you who are developers. Most areas of the Google Apps platform that integrates with Google Drive is centered around My Drive. So My Drive, shared with me, starred, etc. Right? When for example, if you're in Gmail, for example, and you want to save something from Gmail to Drive, I was talking about a little earlier. Well, it's only going to show the contents of your My Drive. So you want to make sure that organizational folder, it's best practice to train and educate your users to make sure they know to add that to their drive, that folder structure, so that it'll automatically appear when they need to store something in their respective folder. If you don't set a policy to add the root folder to your drive, it's really could create some trouble and forced to do some awkward workarounds. So really the best way to do this is to just tell people in your organization how to do this, set up a best practice, use documentation, etc. Of course, we provide all this information should you want to work with us. It becomes the job to manage it, right? And it's nice to empower them when needed, but providing a structure that has an enormous payout that is significantly more manageable as your business and data grow is a complete win. So what's next? Consider the following. The only way this formula works is if you're completely invested in the work that it entails. Understand the value of performing a full audit in order to properly document this new architecture. Educate leadership and colleagues on the implications of making such a switch. Focus on the good because with Google, it always outweighs the bad. Advocate the importance. Look, you've made the investment already, or you're in the process of. So not to enable your organization to fully utilize this unbelievable technology would be a problem. So you need to train them. Stop thinking that your organization already has a handle on using Google Drive. I hear this every day. I don't need training. My team is competent. They already understand Google Drive. And they probably do. But to provide them training that surrounds working and accessing all files in Drive in accordance to a strict architecture is very different than just knowing how to use the application. They need to see and adapt to this vision in order for it to be successful. And another thing, too, to consider of your organization or your school, whatever you may be, is if you're using Google Drive exclusively as your file server, well, this opens up a whole new door for Chrome, especially with Chrome devices, tablets, and things of that nature. Could save you significant overhead if you really want to start looking at Chrome boxes, Chromebooks, etc. Something to really think about. And this is actually how I work too. So just so you know, right there's my Chromebox. And I love it. And I've actually done a blog about doing nothing but using a Chromebox exclusively. And I talk about the pain points, and I also talk about the positives. So I try to be as open-minded as possible. So do you see what we see here, right? This is just a glimpse of how to companies that look at Google's platform beyond Gmail and truly as an enterprise-ready solution, right? Think Google as a platform rather than a replacement for your email provider. The question obviously is where to start. So first of all, be patient. Take a big step back and decide on the right process in order to roll this out accurately. This is not a click and install methodology. It requires time, resources, and most importantly, as I just mentioned, training. And I can't stress this enough because, conceptually, this is it seems like a pretty simple idea. Maybe the implementation of it isn't too difficult, but it really requires a lot of thought to make sure that you're not just adding another application, another solution on top of another solution on top of another solution for your organization. You need to go all in, and it's so critical. And then you need to train, get executive buy-in, and really prove this out to the organization. So here's actually an image of how we figured this out at our office, right? We actually cut out pieces of paper with joiners, connectors, and processes and walk through the whole thing A to Z. Then after organizing the steps, we go through it again and question the how and understand the finer details. This is actually something that we do for every process we do in the entire organization. It may be a little overwhelming, but it works for us, and we find it to be the most efficient way to really get the job done here. So let's talk a little bit more about what this looks like from our perspective. So we invite you to consider partnering with Profound Cloud and enable our Google Apps enhanced admin support, which includes our hands-on white glove support, along with our dedicated account manager to provide monthly platform updates, access to our support specialists, and full support across Google for work. We also offer full staff support as well, should you be interested in mitigating the responsibilities of Google support as the platform continues to evolve. So in phase 2, this is actually what we'll do. First, we'll perform an internal audit and work with you to understand what exactly is the current data that you're using, and where the files are stored and how they're accessed, right? Whether they're using one file server or it's disjointed and using multiple apps. Through our sessions, we'll discuss which files and folders require global or restricted accessibility. Furthermore, we'll address any security needs or potential third-party applications that will replicate the requirements in place of surrounding your current on-premise file server. All this will lead our team to determining the optimal Google Drive navigational structure, which will be presented to you, to your team, following the conclusion of this phase. Then the third phase, we'll actually build out and configure the Drive architecture for your organization. And this includes the folder structure, configuration, and creation of the role-based permissions and sharing structure. Additionally, our team will distribute documentation regarding the structure for your team internally for the future use. And then phase 4 is the actual where you guys will do the migration and we'll provide the training around that. So we'll work with your organization to fulfill the best part of this solution, and please feel free to reach out to me to talk more about that. So here's a simpler model of our plan. The two most pertinent aspects are the initial discovery discussions with department leaders, along with the customized training sessions and documentation to encourage and excite the staff. This is our proven plan, and we want to work with you to make this Google Drive architecture a success for your organization. So if successful, you'll be able to increase operational efficiency and operational effectiveness. Think of how that flat file drive implementation could affect your organization. That means true technology ROI for your organization, and it's not just another product you purchase that is underappreciated. Please feel free, if you haven't already, to download our white paper. We have everything I just talked about. We actually put together a really nice white paper to walk you through our steps and what we can do there. And I'll show you. If you go to our website, let me just see if I can switch to my main screen here. If you go to profoundcloud.com, let me just show you here. So you go to profoundcloud.com. And actually, if you want to access all of our white papers, you can go to our blog, of course, which is a great place where we keep, try to be we're always updating information about Google Apps and what's pertinent to you. But if you're just going to our main website, you can scroll down to the bottom of our website here, and we have all these different resources. So we have our Google Drive migration. You can get the form there. We also have a really good white paper on Google Apps versus Office 365. And we just recently, yesterday, released 2 new white papers. What is Google Apps Unlimited? And then also another white paper on changing Google Apps domains, which is great because a lot of organizations, they call us and they say, hey, we recently changed our name. We're looking to move from, Google Apps X to Google Apps Y domain. And, how do we do that? So we actually put together a white paper to help you guys out with that. So the information we just discussed, like I mentioned, is readily available to our Google for Work partners who have embraced our support. And we recognize that no one knows your business and staff better than you do. But we do ask, who is helping you? And that's where we believe Profound Cloud comes in. We offer white glove Google support that is competitively priced. And in particular, our enhanced admin support, in addition to support, includes monthly training sessions, scheduled time to discuss product updates, and also just an overview and understanding of your technology vision. So if you've gone Google, right, it's critical to keep a constant dialogue with your partner. So we're not just here to renew your licenses. We're actually here to help improve your overall experience utilizing Google Apps. You don't go Google just to perform a migration, right? I hope not. You went Google, you chose a platform to revolutionize your productivity. And we welcome the chance to talk with you. So please feel free to call or email me directly. My email is jason@profoundcloud.com. Please do feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Now I'm just going to see if there's any questions here. We'll see we do have a couple. One of the questions was about why don't we just use email distribution groups? Well, the reason why we don't use distribution groups is because we set up these role-based permissions specific for Google Drive. And we also, if they're email distribution groups, we don't want to have the users to have access and accidentally email these groups unintentionally. It actually could create some confusion and really isn't a very efficient way of utilizing Google Drive in that respect. Okay. We had another question about the flat folder structure. So let me go back to the slide here about the flat folder structure. Let's see here. Where's the slide? Yeah, this was actually a good example. So just to talk about this a little bit more. So when you're using a standard Windows-based file server, for example, you're going to see, you're going to actually visibly see the folder that you start in and actually the path that it leads to. With Google Drive, what we recommend is to be very specific with that naming convention. So if you're, for example, if I'm looking for a proposal for customer XYZ, I can start typing customer XYZ, and then Google will already start to suggest what I'm looking for. And then it'll either give me the folder which contains the proposals for XYZ or the sales folder, etc. And the deeper and more descriptive the naming convention is, the faster and more effective search works. Okay? And just realized we're just about out of time. So there are a couple of more questions, and I'll make sure to email you directly. I really thank everyone for their time. I wanted to give everyone an extra 10 minutes before their next meeting. And yes, this will be recorded, so I will make sure to distribute it to everyone should they have any questions. Again, please feel free to email me directly, but everyone who attended this session will get a copy of this recording. And again, I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you, and have a great day.